Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jim Chung, and I am the Executive Director of the Office of Entrepreneurship and Technology Transfer here at GW. And I have the distinct pleasure of first welcoming you all to our 5th annual business plan competition. And I think that you're going to have a really great time seeing what our students and faculty and alumni have been working on. I think just every year this event gets better and better. Today's no exception. I also have the distinct pleasure of being able to introduce our keynote speaker today. Sonny Vu is a serial entrepreneur that I've known for, I think, over 15 years now. A very close friend. I was along with my firm, was the first investor in both his first and his second startups. And he's now working on his 3rd startup. And very proud to have been part of the building of his company, Matrix, and very excited about his 3rd one called Misfit Wearables. And he's been generously brought along a bunch of certificates for the product that they're developing, which he'll talk about later, that will be going to the first 2 winners in the competition. And the rest of them will be going out to audience members who have registered and are on our list. We'll be raffling them off at the end. So if you haven't registered and signed in, please do so you can get a chance at winning one of these cool shines. They're called shines. Sonny is a very interesting guy. I met him when we were at MIT. He got his PhD in linguistics from there, studying under Noam Chomsky. He's worked at Microsoft. He started his first company along with his roommate from the University of Illinois in software. His second company, Matrix, which is the one that I really helped him with, and we worked together on that, was a blood glucose monitoring company that has just done phenomenally well and developed the first medical device that was approved by Apple for their iPhone integration, and used by Sanofi Aventis now. And his new company that he just launched recently, along with John Scully of Apple fame, is a device for health monitoring. He'll be talking about that a little bit more. But he's got some great stories. He's one of the most dynamic entrepreneurs I know, and I'm very proud to be introducing him now. Sonny?
Thanks a lot. Hello, can everybody hear me? Okay. Let's see here. Hopefully this, I don't know if this clicker works, but okay, so I will forward by hand here. So I thought I would just start by talking, I just wanted to share really 3 stories with you, and in the process, hopefully touch on some topics which are near and dear to me, and that is learning how to adapt, talking about products, which is what I love, and culture, which is probably, for me, one of the most important things that I've learned over the last 15 years doing these 3 startups. If you have, I don't know if there are many tweeters here in the audience, but if you have questions, you can tweet to me, and I'll get it right away, and it'll just distract me, which will be great. And so let me just start by telling a story on pivoting, and it really centers around Matrix, the last company that I started, which was a blood glucose monitoring medical device company. So this came after my very first company called FireSpout, which was a natural language processing company. It was one of the earliest machine learning companies that we did. And that, for all intents and purposes, was a failure. And we had great technology, but we didn't know how to productize. We were absolutely not lean in our approach. And so it was cool to demo, but just in terms of market penetration, almost none. But we did eventually sell the technology to a large search engine and recovered a tiny bit of money. But we, and then, so I had dropped out of school to do that, and then I dropped back, and then I went back in school, dropped back out again 2 months later to start Matrix, much to the dismay of my parents at the time. That's okay. And so here we are, after this FireSpout failure, and surprisingly, and we said, okay, that's it. We want to We want to do something that would be really meaningful this time around, not just make someone's search engine better or a router faster or something like that. Let's do something medical or healthcare related. But we searched through a number of different ideas before we settled on the one that we ended up doing. And so here we are in the apartment, in our one-bedroom apartment that I moved into. I actually live behind this, basically a paper wall. It's homosote, which is like this thick paper-like material. So I lived in that room behind there, and Sridhar got the other room. And the rest of the space was this office, and this is Sridhar. I've actually known him since the end of high school. And here's me. And so we were holed up here, and we just, brainstormed, business planned, prototyped, and whatnot for a bit of time. This time we wanted to get it, to do it right. And after a period of time, we figured out a way of. We found a great market, diabetes. So anyone here know anyone with diabetes? Yeah, pretty much everybody. Okay, it's unfortunately it afflicts hundreds of millions of people worldwide, and there isn't a cure. But fortunately, there's great technology now to manage this disease. But what we ended up doing was we came up with a way of making glucose sensing, the finger pricking that you have to do to test your blood sugar, more accurate with just better math. So basically, better signal processing and whatnot. I'm a mathematician by training originally, and Sridhar is a double E. Anyway, so of course no one believed us because over the last several decades, people had, the innovations that had happened in this space were mainly chemistry related. So chemists making these sensors better, not math people trying to analyze the information better. But we did find some people that did believe in us, and we found one. And then after that, we found a few more. And so we got a first round of financing. And in fact, one of the first people who financed us was Jim's firm. And I remember having this conversation with Jim and gang and said, "Are you sure you want to invest in us again? I mean, you kind of lost money on the first time around, And they said, "No, you know what? You guys acted with integrity. We trust you. You guys are a good team. You know what you're doing. In fact, you're probably smarter now than you were the first time around." And I said, "All right." And so we had our perfunctory T-shirt party as a result of that. And here's a picture. This is a kind of a famous picture because here we are posing for actually Jim's the one who took this picture. So we've because he was working with us right there. And so here we are back in the basement. This is a famous basement for us, or it's a basement with sentimental value for us now because this is where my third startup has come out of. The first one being the Fire Spout, the second one, Argumatrix, and third one now, Misfit Wearables. And here we are, holed up in this basement, and Jim's helping us with the business planning and whatnot. We quickly made our first pivot because it turned out that making glucose meters more accurate was not an interesting product, surprisingly. It blew us away because as scientists and mathematicians, whatnot, we thought, if you're testing your blood sugar and you're paying for all these products, shouldn't accuracy be really important? Turns out that it's not, because it turns out that if people know that it's FDA cleared, they think it's accurate enough because the government's looking out for our best interests, right? So and it turned out that it was the strips where you make all your money. The way these systems work is you put these strips in a device. You prick your finger, put the blood in, and you get a result. And so these meters are often given away for free, hence making meters more accurate. Not interesting, but making the strips very interesting. So we made our own strips, and no one told us that you can't make strips, and that it was really expensive. So we went ahead and tried to do it. And of course, and so all this machinery, we made it ourselves. This is actually a class 100,000 clean room that we actually built ourselves in the basement. Jim knows it well. And it worked. It surprisingly worked. These crappy little strips that we made by hand, okay, usually they're made by large industrial machines, but because of our algorithms, we could correct for all the errors. It worked. People couldn't believe it, so we got our Series A financing from folks who had been in the industry. Grew up a cool little culture. We focused a lot on culture in the early days. And that's important, because I'll circle back to that. Turns out that making strips was also not a good idea because it was very expensive, very capital intensive, and just really hard to do. I mean, we could make 1,000 a day. You know, I think Jim actually made a few of these, but what we needed to do was make millions a day. Okay, that is like 3 orders of magnitude more than what we were able to do. So our second pivot was, let's get other people to make strips for us. So no one had ever done this before, because you don't do that. You make the strips and then you sell the strips. But we actually went to Asia, bought, actually Jim helped us find the supplier in Korea. We went all over China, Taiwan, Korea, went through like 20 factories, finally found a few, and we found some strips that were not that accurate, couldn't pass FDA, but with our system worked better because we made the accuracy better. So we got that FDA cleared, got another round of financing, moved up to New Hampshire, good old New Hampshire. This is the original building. We shipped our first product on a beautiful winter day. Actually, technically it's spring, but it was still super cold. So we ran outside, stood by the truck, had 4 pallets of our products to our first customers. Then we made our next mistake, and that was trying to develop a consumer brand. And so we realized, that was a stupid idea. We should pivot again, and that was, let's get other people to market for us. Let's get other people to make the stuff and get other people to market for us. So it's like, what do we do? What is it that we do exactly, right? Well, it's we were the integrators here, okay? And also the underlying technology did actually make it more accurate. Like without it, we couldn't use these Korean strips. Anyways, that worked great. This private label business, we're as a startup, you generally have no business trying to start a consumer brand. That's just this, a fairly stupid thing to do. But we didn't know any better. We didn't, go to business school or anything. Anyways, the word got out, and strip demand went through the roof. We went back to Korea, and with some money from the Korean government, they put in a few $1 million. We put in a few $1 million. Our partner in Korea that Jim found put in a few $1 million, and we built one of the world's largest biosensor factories. So now this facility produces something like 1.3 billion strips a year. And so we've really enjoyed a great ride there. We sold meters and strips for years. And then we got to another kind of point where we said, okay, meters and strips, it's nice, a nice kind of linear growth here. Not bad, but then we saw this mobile revolution coming kind of on the late side, to be completely honest. We saw that the iPhone was coming, and we said, hey, wouldn't it be great to make a glucose meter? Wouldn't it be great to make an app that works on the iPhone that helps diabetes patients use, track their scores and whatnot? And then it turns out that And then so we did that. That was fine. And then we said, well, wouldn't it be great if we could make a glucose meter that plugged into the iPhone? And that turned out to be, and it seemed like a natural thing to do, use the display for diabetes management. And Apple, of course, was, well, absolutely not, because we do not want to have a medical device plugged into the iOS system. And so we ended up, but after about 9 months of not taking no for an answer, we finally got a yes, and we became the world's first hardware medical device that works on the iPhone. And as a result of that, Sanofi, one of the world's largest drug makers, one of the largest insulin makers in the world, actually, caught on to this and really liked the product. We partnered with them. We did this massive deal with them and Apple and Walgreens for distribution and marketing and whatnot. And they did this huge launch event for us, spent more money in the first these 3 days of the launch than we did as a company for the first 4.5 years of our existence. So we love pharma partners for that reason. They're smart, deep pockets, and need a pipeline. And so over the last 10 years, we've really enjoyed, you saw us scrapping it from our apartment to building a great business that's been a lot of fun. We've shipped a lot of products and learned a lot. I mean, Sridhar and I, we were starting this in our mid-20s. We didn't know any better. We're 20-year-old kids trying to start a medical device company, bad idea. And if we would have known what we would have had to go through, lawsuits, reimbursement, regulatory stuff, clinical studies, how to market to doctors, I don't know if we would have started this company, but and that's why they always say you have to be a little bit naive, and so we had a lot of that going in. I think basically one of the things that we did was we had aside from great science, we had an obsessive focus on a user experience, and even down to the way the company was structured. And so the design team, so usually what happens in a medical device company is you have some kind of innovation, you make it, and then the marketing people come in and say, oh, you got to make it nice. So you hire IDEO or whoever, they make it fuchsia, and then you ship the product, and it's really hard to use, but what we did was a little different. Was we actually grabbed we had the design team actually report to the board not to engineering or marketing, and then we just came up with a concept on what the user would want, and then just obsessively focus on making that and not compromising along the way. And so, in a sense, we kind of redesigned this category and really had a fun time doing it. So the point there was, I think what we learned from the first company was you can't just make stuff in a cave. Lean startup as a movement didn't really exist back in 1999, or at least not that I know of. I'm sure people were talking about it, but we didn't read the book at that time. The book wasn't out. But we learned it the hard way, and that was, you can't just develop stuff in a cave. We have to try it out. We have to adapt. And dealing with ambiguity and adapting to conditions, adapting to what people want as fast as humanly possible was, and just having having the resolve to make these changes really was one of the biggest things we learned from the Argumatrix story. Any questions so far? Okay, so second story. We're product people, so I thought I'd tell you a quick story about products, and I thought I'd try to be just have something practical for the audience here. I want to tell you a story about how we used to, do focus groups. And it was just the most moronic thing ever, because people always tell us, you need to make a glucose meter that hurts less, that is faster, more accurate. Like, whoa, that's pretty insightful. We know that, of course you want that, but what is it that you really want? Because that's like saying, I want a car that, is more fuel efficient. Well, okay. So we gave up. We abandoned focus groups because basically we found that we just could never get really meaningful insights because we're asking the wrong people the wrong questions. We're asking people for what they want, and we've learned very deeply that knowing what the customer wants is definitely not their job. So one of the things we did was we decided, you know what, we need to be users ourselves. We need to watch users. And we have to watch them in a way that it doesn't influence them. So instead of bringing people into a room and videotape and whatever, we said, let's send out cameras to people. And this is back in the days when it was, these wind-up, paper cameras, right? Not digital cameras. And we've discovered all sorts of stuff. People really liked it. They would take pictures of their surroundings, of basically where they would use their products. So this is an example of one of those stories where this lady, Lucy, she goes home and she takes this picture. We find it and we ask her, what's up with this koala attached to your blood glucose case here? And she was embarrassed. She was like, oh, no, it's my diabetic koala. Don't worry about it. I'm like, what do you mean diabetic koala? What do you mean by that? And I think we kind of knew immediately when we saw this. We found out that basically she has arthritis, like many of the people that we serve in the diabetes community. And she couldn't open the case because the zipper was too small. So she had to grab the koala to open the case. And she had her little tiger for her koozie, and like another thing she had basically these stuffed animals for anything that had zippers. So we said, why? And it was like, we need to make the zippers bigger. That's what we got to do. And so we made a gigantic zipper for our product, and she loved it. She just said, I love how accurate your glucose meters are. And I said, no, you don't. You don't really care about the accuracy. You just like the zipper. And so the lesson we learned here was it's about watching people, not focus groups. So the philosophy we've developed over the years is be a user yourself. So we couldn't compel people legally to do this, but our entire product team was under heavy social pressure to test their blood glucose readings, prick their finger 3 to 4 times a day for years. So for almost a decade, we've been. I still test my blood glucose. It's become a habit now, and so none of us have diabetes, and our doctors think we're nuts because they're like, any issues with diabetes? We're like, no, absolutely not. Every day I find out I don't have diabetes. Thank God. So we be a user, even if it's not your own. And so we don't have a perfect, empathy for it, but it definitely made us realize like very obvious things that were not obvious before. Like pain is definitely not in the top 3 of like what's important, because you realize it stops hurting after about 3 to 6 months of using it. You just get numb to the pain, and what is really annoying is getting blood on your clothes. Okay, that's annoying, or having to carry around all this crap. That was annoying. And so the other thing is watching users. That's really important. And then rapidly prototype. Just make stuff and just try it out, and then reflect on based on that. And then use the prototype and watch users. Use it yourself. And so that's really the philosophy that we developed over the years. At Misfit, where we are doing wearable technology, we've watched how people develop products now. They start with a circuit board, with the sensors and what they can do, and then they encase it in plastic, and they get some design firm to make it pretty, make it in fuchsia, and then they get the marketing people to convince people to strap it on, to put it on their bodies. And I don't have one of those devices now, but we just think there's clearly we can do better. And so what we've done is we thought, let's think about what people wear now. Precious stones, precious metals, cashmere, cotton. That's what people wear, not plastic and rubber. Okay, so let's not make stuff out of plastic and rubber anymore. And so we made the Shine, carved out of aircraft-grade aluminum. It's gorgeous. It's this tiny little thing that you would wear. I could wear in a professional setting like this, and then just define what it needs to be, and then like under threat of outsourcing, get the engineering team to make it. And if they can't invent around it, then you outsource or you don't make the product. That's what we've learned. And and also start with manufacturing very early on, so that you know that you can make it and that compromises don't happen at the factory level. So our vision is, wearable technology might look like whatever you see on the left, but it is going to be what's on the right. It's going to either be beautiful or invisible, or it will not be used. That's kind of our view. So anyways, the point here is ideal combination, deep science, deep thinking, all the hard work, but with a great user interface, with a playful interface that doesn't force people to do things that they aren't already doing. So I'm going to skip this, but the short of it, my point here, is there's this behavioral psychologist called named BJ Fogg. He's developed this great model, I'm a big fan of, called the Fogg behavior model. He basically says that there are products that are between ease of use and motivation. These are 2 things that kind of define whether people use things or will do certain things. And so so the easier it is to do something, and the more motivated you are to use something or to do something, you will definitely do it or use it. Okay, that's it. So you want to be on the upper as usual, but with the 2x2, you want to be on the upper right. And so, but we've added on to that, and we think about products that pass the turnaround test. What are things in your life that you would turn around for if you're going to work and you forget the product at home? What would you turn around for to go home and get? And so you can guess right now. Your glasses, your wallet, your iPhone, jeans, that kind of thing. Your clothes. You probably wouldn't leave your house without your clothes. Depends on the profession, I suppose. So So we've tried to. Our aim is let's develop products that pass the turnaround test. It's very hard. There are very few products that pass that test. Final word about product design. There's this. We try to make products that people are motivated to use, and products that are easy to use. Okay, and you can break them down even further. If you look at motivation, it's either about life relevance, how critical is it to you, and also the user experience. Is it fun to use or is it boring? I mean, there are many ways of slicing this up, but this is just one way. And an inhaler, if you have asthma, it's pretty life critical. It doesn't have to be fun to use. Just as long as it works, you're going to use it. Or Angry Birds, pretty useless, but a lot of fun. And so you want to be an Angry Birds inhaler. How amazing would that be? Ease of use. It really comes down to how passive something is. Like if you don't have to use it, that's even better. And also when you use it, how many steps does it take? Okay, so as few steps. If one-click Amazon purchasing, there's a reason why that was made. It was so that you can just click on one thing and you bought it and it's at your door, you know. And so, but if you had to rank, if you had to like optimize for my advice to entrepreneurs and product makers in general, if you had to choose between ease of use and motivation, I'd say focus on ease of use. Only because motivation can really vary from market to market and whatnot, but ease of use is this universal desirable thing. When you make something really easy to use, guess what? People end up using it. So just a quick 2-minute thing on Misfit, since Jim asked me to talk about that. This is the third company now. Any questions so far? We talked about pivots. We talked about products. Okay. Feel free to chime in anytime. So about 3 years ago, I met John Scully, and we started to get to became friends. He's a designer as well, so we really got along. John's the former CEO of Pepsi and of Apple. And myself and Sridhar, there's Sridhar now, a little more cleaned up than before, and there's John. And the three of us started Misfit together, and we're focused on this wearables space. These are products that you wear that will measure different physiological parameters and whatnot, and are for health and fitness and soon medical applications. We did our own seed round of financing. We got financed by the best VCs in Silicon Valley. We made our first product, which we're giving out 10 of today. And we did a consumer test, which did really well. And then we also were at CES, and there was a Last Gadget Standing competition, which is kind of like a Project Runway, but for stuff. And we were 2 of the top 10 this year, surprisingly, were health products, which is weird. Usually they're like cell phones or electric bikes or whatever. But it seems like a breakout year for health devices. And we're shipping later this year. Based in San Francisco, we do all the industrial design and hardware there, and a lot of the software and data science in Vietnam. And we manufacture, once again, in Korea. We love Korea. It's a great place to design stuff. We've won a bunch of design awards again for Shine. And it's basically this device that works with the iPhone and Android device later that you wear. It's an activity tracker. You can wear it on your wrist or wear it right here. You just tap it, and it tells you your daily activity goals, like how you're doing. So there's like dots around the metal disc there, and when you have all 12 dots, you've finished your daily activity goal. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a pedometer, but it's an activity monitor more generally. And then it's got a cool party trick where you put the Shine on the screen of the phone, and it just transfers the data magically. It's really cool. I'll demo that for you as well. We've got a cool app that helps you set your goals and sync your data, see the insights. It's about the size of a quarter. You can wear it in a bunch of places. These people probably don't need activity monitors, but they make it look good. So if you want to look like him, that's kind of how it compares to other products. It's smaller, it's more elegant. That's the basic idea. I mean, and it's the only thing made of metal. Everything else is plastic. You can wear it anywhere, wear it on different parts of your body, and wear it to any occasion, so you don't look weird wearing it to like your daughter's wedding or something. You can swim with it. That's the other thing. And then, but one of the things that I wanted to emphasize, and I feel like a great, like a big tip, I'll say, for this generation of entrepreneurs. So there's this whole phenomenon of crowdfunding. Has anyone heard of Kickstarter or? Oh wow, okay. So usually, so this is a very savvy crowd, but it seems like it's a fairly new kind of phenomenon where you're putting up projects on sites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and you get some funding for it, which is nice. I mean, we're venture funded, so it wasn't a big deal. But what we found was we just learned so much from this thing, and it gave us, and it emboldened us with sales. Like, so when after this campaign, we just learned a lot about what people wanted. And so we did this, we posted Shine on Indiegogo, and it became the fastest growing crowdfunding campaign in Indiegogo history. We had a $100,000 goal just to see, would people actually buy this? And we hit it within 9.5 hours of launch. And within a few weeks, $850,000 from 64 countries. Okay, so, I mean, we had orders from Cambodia and And I was like, Cambodia and Belize. I didn't think people had money to spend on stuff like this there, but apparently they do, and there's interest. But we learned so much. And it's also a great marketing kind of launch mechanism as well. So we got a lot of press coverage and whatnot. So if anyone ever is interested to learn more about crowdfunding, I would be delighted to tell you more, because it's really an incredible way to testing consumers. Because, if I said, hey, would you buy a Shine, and under duress, sure, okay, but I would take that as a no. But if I said, would you buy it? Oh, great, give me your credit card. I'm going to swipe it right now. That's a real yes. Okay, so we had 8,000 real yeses, and especially when, okay, great, I'll send it to you probably in 6 months. That's a different kind of yes than, would you buy it for $99 kind of consumer test. So I think, so it's very powerful. And I think when you come to retailers and whatnot, and they say, how do you know people are going to buy this? Well, 8,000 people have already bought it. What do you mean? You haven't launched the product. Exactly. And so it's an incredible tool for us in this generation. I'll skip the tips in crowdfunding, doing other products. Okay, and I just want to wrap up with one last thing. Just a few lessons to leave the audience with. And that is, if there was anything I've learned through the last 2 startups, including this one, it's the core importance of culture. I feel in some ways, especially in Silicon Valley, culture gets thrown around as kind of a buzz term and whatnot. But I think buzz terms have a place for us in our culture because they reflect things that are important to us oftentimes. So I'm going to talk about culture. But the 5 lessons learned, and I'll get back to it. But if I had to summarize 5 lessons that I've learned. Reputation above all, and act like it. If it wasn't for us acting with complete transparency and integrity with Firespout, we would not have gotten funded. We would have been forever not funded at Alchematrix. And if it wasn't for the way we treated Series A investors and stood up for them at Alchematrix, we would not have had the continued support or the support again for Misfit. So Jim's no longer with Ink Tank, who funded us, but they funded us again for the 3rd time, even prior to any kind of exit from Alchematrix. And so it's really important. And also, the ecosystems are small, so just in any ecosystem you're in. And so, reputation, very important. Being obsessive about culture, hiring and firing based on that, really important. In my first company, we hired based on IQ. So we had a bunch of tests and quizzes and all that stuff. So we hired a bunch of really smart guys and ladies who had social issues. And so HR nightmare, okay? Because we just laser focused on IQ, so, And then the second company, we tried to be obsessive about culture, but we were not obsessive enough. And as a result of an acquisition that we did, we kind of inherited a culture that kind of basically replaced the one that we had before. And it became one where it was all about experience. You should only hire experienced people. So we ended up hiring a bunch of people. And experience is great, but I think it's actually the wrong metric. What you want is wisdom. Right? And wisdom is correlated with experience, but not always, because sometimes we hired some people with 20 years, who we thought had 20 years of experience, but actually they had 1 year of experience 20 times, and they never really learned. And so that's actually worse, because now they can things were justified based on experience that were actually not based on wisdom. And so, that's so. I'll talk a little bit. I'll close with culture in a bit, but. Being lean, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. I feel like I probably have a lot more to learn about being lean from you guys than what you can learn from me. But being relentless with getting user feedback is very obvious in retrospect. Thinking about the user first. Again, this is probably a buzzy phrase, but things like design matters. When we started Alchematrix, there were 30 competitors, okay, and then when we entered the market with a product, there were 70 competitors, okay? But we still carved out a business that's moving towards $100 million in revenue, profitable. Why? Because there wasn't a culture on design in the early days. So in many of these other companies, they were medical device companies that, had some science and then, put it in plastic and got some firm to make it in fuchsia and then, got marketing to force it down people's throats. And so, in a sense, we didn't really I wouldn't say we reimagined blood glucose monitoring, but I think we had a major design overhaul, and that really helped. The last thing I would say is stand up for what you believe. We were always under constant pressure to hire experts and trust them. Experts are great. They have their place. They helped us a lot. Legal experts, patent folks, regulatory folks. Their wisdom, awesome, right? But at the end of the day, they get paid, right? And you get stuck with the bill, and you get stuck with whatever problems, and you have to solve them. And so, as an entrepreneur, trust experts and get the experience, use that wisdom, but you're the one who has to deal with the consequences. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't say don't trust experts, but don't trust quote experts, because some people are not necessarily expert. Being lean, I think you know about this. I'll skip. Knowing when to pivot, that's huge, right? That's wisdom. That's not just about high IQ, right? And the last thing is culture. So I can't emphasize this enough how important this is. One of the lessons that John taught me early on when I was hanging out with him, and I just knew, okay, I want this guy to be my mentor, is only work with people you like. Life's too short. And at first I thought, it's easy for you to say, because you're John Scully. You can work select it. You can work with anyone you like. But I got to hustle. I'm still in my 30s, and I got to meet. There's going to be jerks who really know what they're doing. I just got to work with them. And I've just learned that it's just not worth it. Especially if you're doing a startup and you have a co-founder, or you're thinking about someone as a co-founder, and if you just don't like the person. I mean, just like what we were talking about in the judges' room earlier, if you just don't like someone, it's going to be painful, because you're going to spend 18 hours a day with this person for the next, 3 to 5 years, minimum, right? You should like the person, and you should enjoy being with them. You don't have to hang out with them socially, okay? It's funny, because Sridhar and I are very different, okay? On the Myers-Briggs, I don't know if anyone's taken that test, but I am ESFP, he is INTJ, okay? So we are complete opposites. I drive him nuts, he drives me nuts, but at the end of the day, we have mutual respect. And we don't actually like hanging out with each other socially, even though we're best friends. Because he likes to drink wine, I don't drink. He's a vegetarian, I'm a meatitarian. So, we are very different in that regard. But it's worked because we've complemented each other. And so one of the things is what I've learned, be obsessively focused on culture, which then you weed out people who don't share your values, because in the long term, that's really what's going to sustain you through the tough times, and that's what drives your decision making. And so the first thing I would say is, when you're starting a business, think about what your core values are going to be, and be distinctive. Don't be like what Enron had. Their values were like integrity and communication and I don't know what else it was, but they were basically non-distinct values, that did not drive decision making. Like, what are you going to do in a decision? Like, oh, should we do this deal or not? Should we act with integrity or not? Of course you're gonna, it didn't drive any decisions. And so with us, 3 values: be thoughtful, think through stuff, let's let the right person be heard, not the loud person. That happened in my last company. I hated it. All the loud people got heard, and just all the introverts, who were the smart introverts, just curled up and got steamrolled all the time. I'm sure many people in this audience have experienced that, and we all hate that. Be a misfit. When you have limited resources, building products for an uncertain market, in a situation of extreme uncertainty, right? Lean startup. You have to embrace unconventionality. You cannot do things the way that other people do. You have to break the rules, not the law, but only for good reason. And the last one is being a servant leader, meaning no egos. Check those at the door. The most senior people at Misfit are expected to be the ones who take off the trash, who give up their business class seats for their team members. They're expected to do that, and we like hanging around people like that. So I'll skip through this. But yeah, that was it. So so the culture, yeah, more important than just about anything. I'm just leaving this up because it's a plug for Misfit. But any questions for us, for me, that I can answer?
I've seen the bio, the reference to good design.
Yeah.
So something like what about when you started today and
Yeah.
what about the company CEO advising that good design practices? How did you take with this?
Get into that? Well, I was actually I majored in design in college. I was an engineering student. I dropped out and wanted to do sculpture. My parents had a fit, and then Sridhar talked me out of it in a very smart way, and then I ended up doing math like a good kid. And then, but then I basically have had this unrequited love for design that yeah. But the whole design thing, it doesn't. I mean, it's not just about making things pretty. It's about like thinking through how something would be used, whether it's a product or a service. Even if you're working on a drug, is it like, I think design like permeates our thinking, in terms of, it can permeate your thinking in the way you present information even. It really makes a difference because we're humans and we are attracted to certain things and not to others, and we have habits that we are, that rule us in many ways. So it's you don't have to have a degree in design or be an artist to have good design be a part of your organization. It's really just about thinking through stuff. So, any other questions? Yeah, we're good.
Thank you, Sonny.
Thanks.